Hello, Morongo Basin and listeners around the world online at Z107.7 FM.com. This is your Z107.7 local news for Sunday, August 23rd, 2026. The town of Yucca Valley received their first community engagement and homeless services program update at the last Yucca Valley Town Council meeting. Faith Nicholson was hired in June of this year for the role of community engagement and homeless services coordinator, funded by Measure Y Quality of Life funds. Here's Faith.
As this is a brand new program for the town, we didn't even have any goals established, so that was one of the first things that we worked on. We wanted to make sure that this program's goals aligned with the town's overall goals, so this is what we have so far. We want to have a compassionate, proactive, and solution-focused approach to addressing homelessness by collaborating with local service providers, governmental agencies, and different county programs to provide individuals experiencing homelessness with support, representation, and advocacy. We want to ensure that any of our homeless residents and any residents at risk of homelessness have access to appropriate resources and services.
She says she's engaged with different departments around town to see what challenges they commonly face when helping or interacting with homeless residents. And amongst those, she listed vandalism, property left in public spaces, limited mental health resources, and inaccurate data. The only official data on the number of homeless individuals in the Morongo Basin is the point-in-time count, a single-day census conducted every year by the Office of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. In 2026, the point-in-time count happened on January 22nd and counted 92 individuals in the Morongo Basin, with Yucca Valley reporting 25 unsheltered and 21 in transitional housing.
It is important to make sure that we're not under-reporting results because it does result in fewer resources to our region. And so we're going to be looking at getting more accurate counts to improve access to housing and other supportive services.
Nicholson says those point-in-time numbers were used to decide funding levels for the region's 211 Housing Resources Hotline.
So the data for Yucca Valley for our 211 calls for Q2 of this year was 152 calls. And 127 of those calls were for housing. So as you see, a lot of the people that are calling for housing resources are not being placed on the referral list. And when talking to them about why that is, part of the problem is that being the only provider referring people to the coordinated entry team, they just don't have the resources to send a lot of people all the way out here. You know, geographically, we're kind of far from the San Bernardino area. And so it's hard for their team to be able to verify a lot of the documents. In order to be placed on the wait list, you do have to have verification of your identity, income, housing status. And if you don't have a provider to assist you with all of those, then it's easy to essentially fall through the cracks and not be placed on the referral list. United Way can subcontract these services, and they have in the past. However, last year, HUD used our point-in-time count numbers to decide how much money our region got to run the 211 and CES program. And we only got $7,000 to run that program.
The McKinney-Vento program is a federal school program that ensures children experiencing housing insecurities have access to education and resources, and Nicholson shared a slide in her presentation with numbers collected through that program that were discordant with point-in-time count data.
So essentially what this means is if we have a student here in the Morongo Basin facing housing insecurity, then they would qualify to, or they would be classified as McKinney-Vento. As you see at the bottom, the school district, so Morongo Unified School District, had 547 McKinney-Vento students enrolled in their last school year. So what that means is we had 547 students experiencing housing insecurity, and 547 students whose families rely on services like 211 and coordinated entry to be able to access stable housing and other appropriate resources.
Nicholson says she's not only collecting the data from inbound referrals, she's also actively seeking out encampments and residents experiencing homelessness, contacting them in person to see what resources the town can provide. Faith says that around town and in populated areas, she's doing that outreach solo. However, there are often situations where unhoused individuals are on private or remote property, and in some of those survey cases, she's joined by Quality of Life Deputy Alex Camacho from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Nicholson says she'll be heading up this year's point-in-time count, which can always use more volunteers. The department has its own page on the town's website with a community resource guide, Faith's contact information, rental assistance, and referral links. We'll have a link on our website as well.
And lastly, we are working on making sure we have safe and accessible public spaces for all of our residents. So we will be updating our town ordinances and policies to be compliant with local changes to state law and funding sources, such as the Encampment Resolution Funding Program. We do need to make sure some of our ordinances are up to date to be able to qualify for some of those grants.
At the conclusion of her presentation and during council member comments and questions, Nicholson received praise for the work that she's been doing. Here's Deputy Town Manager Curtis Yakima.
Mayor and council, I think you can tell from the presentation this evening that we have the right person running this program for the town. Super excited to have Faith on board. Her expertise is well known throughout the basin, not only with the actual activities, but also the relationships that are necessary, both with providers, with potential clients, and with other organizations in the community.
We'll have links to everything mentioned here at our website, Z107.7fm.com. Reporting for Z107.7 News, I'm Robert Hayden.